Hey there nation, welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and we are back with another episode of the Underhive Wars. This is our series of weekly Necromunda battle reports, and this is battle report number 41. It is an ambush scenario that is played between First Prince Belair as well as myself. First Prince Belair is bringing the iron sights of House Orlock, and I'm bringing that jury of House Cawdor. So we're going to play some background music real quick. If you want to see exactly what we're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so the scenario rules for this one is ambush. For the crews, the attacker, which is played by my friend First Prince Belair, will get his entire gang to fight with, while I already start up with D3 plus 5 gangers. Just to tell you guys right now, I end up rolling an 8 on that one, so I end up with 8 randomly chosen members of my gang. For each of my players and each of my fighters, I roll a d6 for each fighter, and on a roll of 1 through 5, I set up my members right in the middle of the table within a 12-inch circle around the center of the board. However, if I roll a 6, though, I get to set up that fighter anywhere on the board, so long as they're not currently engaged with an enemy fighter. Attackers must set up at least 12 inches away from my center deployment, or at least 6 inches away from one of my fighters if there is no direct line of sight. The objective is a surprise attack for the attacker. The attacker's objective is to take priority, plus the attacker can also activate D3 fighters before I get to make the very first of my activations for my fighters. And of course, for the attacker, all fighters need to take a cool check, and if they fail that cool check, they can only make 1 action instead of the normal 2, and that's for the opening round only. My objective is known as slipping the net. Pretty much my goal is to escape the edge of the battlefield. What I have to do is I have to only escape by moving one of my fighters within 1 inch of a table edge, and once they do, they escape. Victory conditions, of course, is for the attacker to put out more defenders out of action than escape, in which case if he does that, he automatically wins. For the rewards for experience, all fighters participating in the scenario earn +1 to their experience points, and all defenders who manage to escape also manage to earn a bonus experience point as well. And if the attacker manages to make sure that no defenders escape whatsoever, the attacking leader also gets +1 experience point. When it comes to reputation, both of our gangs will receive 1 point of reputation for fighting against each other for the very first time. And if the attacker manages to put down more defenders out of action than escape, he also earns a point of reputation. And if I manage to have more fighters escape than put down of action, I earn 2 points reputation. And as always, if any gang bottles out, it's -1 point reputation for our total. And that pretty much makes it the scenario rules for this one. So with the scenario rules over, let's go talk about the battle plan real fast. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, we're playing on a 4x4 table, and I'm deployed roughly in the center of the table, while my friend First Prince Belair has kind of spread his forces around to kind of intercept me as well. For the most part, I kind of corralled my troops right there between the chemical tanks right there in the middle of the battlefield, as well as the Hesco barriers and rubble over to the far right-hand side of the battlefield. And the reason why I've done that is so that way I have some kind of protection. So that way, First Prince Belair does suffer a -1 to hit against if he should open up on me in the very first round as well. My plan here is to have my gang actually escape to the north side of the table. First Prince Belair has mainly concentrated his forces on the southern part of the table as well as the eastern part of the table as well. So my goal is to move as quickly as I possibly can to the north, escape off that table edge, and try to take out as many Orlocks as I can before they stop me as well. Also, if you notice, I do have one of my Juvies. His name is Reptile. He's located in the bottom right hand corner right next to the Knight Rider as well as Kundalini, which are 2 members of the Iron Sights, and hopefully he can put some hurting on those guys and cause them from causing any long range shooting with their heavy stubber as well as their grenade launcher, and then I'll just have Reptile just kind of escape down south and have him escape that way. And that's pretty much the plan I'm going with on this one. I only have 8 members of my gang, whereas my friend First Prince Belair has his entire gang to work with, so I have my work cut out for me. Alright, so let's go and talk about deployment real quick for the jury. So this is where most of my fighters are located at. Let's go and start on the far right hand side. That is my leader, Riptor. He is my leader. He's equipped with mesh armor. He's got a mastercrafted bolt gun with an attached grenade launcher. He has a reclaimed auto pistol as well as a chain sword. He's also packing a cult icon and a drop rig. He's got the commanding presence as well as the mentor skill. Right next to him on the bottom there, that is Sulaco. He is an ammo jack. He's armed with bolt gun, power hammer, and mesh armor. He's also got the munitioneer skill. And right next to him on the left hand side, that is my newly recruited ganger, Johnny. He's got flak armor as well as a plasma gun. He has a maul and he's got a stub gun with dum-dum bullets. Right next to him on the left hand side, that's VR. He's another one of my gangers. He's equipped with flak armor, twin reclaimed auto pistols as well as a strip clip. And then right next to him on the left hand side, that is Mad Teddy. He's another one of my gangers. He's equipped with flak armor, a reclaimed auto gun as well as a maul. And then right above him, that is Scorpion. He's another gang who's armed with flak armor. He's got a reclaimed auto gun as well as a maw. And then on the far right hand side, making a full complete circle, that is Zero. That's another one of my gangers. He's equipped with flak armor. He's got a reclaimed auto gun as well as a maw. And that pretty much makes it my deployment here in the center of the table. So jumping across the table to Fresh Prince Bel-Air and his iron sights. Over here in the far left-hand corner of the battlefield is where Fresh Prince Bel-Air has deployed his leader, the Toe Cutter. That's the guy there on the left-hand side. He's equipped with mesh armor. He's got a bolt gun and maul. He's got the commanding presence as well as true grit ability. He's also suffered a hobbling and spinal injury over the course of our campaign. And right next to him on the right-hand side, that is Doc Dealgood. He is a Lugger Servitor. He's got heavy carapace armor. He's got a Servitor combat weapon as well as a heavy stubber equipped with a monosight. He's also got the weapon platform as well as ammo hopper skills. And that pretty much makes up his deployment here in the left-hand corner. And in the center of the battlefield, right behind that ambulance, 6 inches away from my troops because they're out of line of sight. On the right-hand side, that is Durango. He is a ganger who's equipped with mesh armor, a shotgun with solid and scatter shot. He's also packing a maul and a stub gun with dum-dum rounds. And next on the left-hand side, that is No Face, who is a ganger. He's equipped with mesh armor. He's equipped with a flamer, with stub gun, as well as dum-dum rounds as well. And that pretty much makes up his deployment here in the center of the battlefield. In the bottom right-hand corner of the battlefield is where he has his 2 long-range operatives. First up on the left-hand side, that is the Knight Rider. He's his gang champion. He's equipped with mesh armor, a heavy stubber with auto pistol, as well as a drop rig. He's got the connected skill, and he's also suffering from a head injury. And then right next on the right-hand side, that is Kundalini, who's a ganger, who's equipped with mesh armor, a grenade launcher with flag, as well as crack grenades, as well as a maw. And then right behind them, sneak up like a ninja, that is my Juvie Reptile. He's equipped with flak armor, a stub gun with dum-dum bullets, and maw, as well as frag grenades. And that pretty much makes up the deployment here on the bottom right-hand corner. On the far right-hand side of the table, on the second floor of the catwalk there, he's got 2 more members of the Iron Sights. On the right-hand side, that is Bubba Zanetti. He's a ganger equipped with mesh armor, an auto gun equipped with a telescopic sight. He's also got a drop rig, and he's got the specialist skill as well. And then right next to him on the left-hand side, that is Starbuck is his name. He's a ganger. He's also equipped with mesh armor and auto gun. He's got frag grenades as well as a maw, and he's also suffering from a hobbling injury as well. And right next to him on the ground level, right behind that hedgehog, is one of his juvies. That is Johnny the Boy. That's the guy on the left-hand side. He's equipped with mesh armor. He's got an auto pistol as well as a maw and frag grenades. Right next on the right-hand side, that is Diabando, another juvie who's equipped with mesh armor, a maul, a stub gun, as well as dum-dum rounds for that. And he's also suffering from eye injury as well. And that pretty much makes up the guys here on the right-hand side for Fresh Prince Bel-Air. And on the very far right-hand side, on top of that office building, overwatching my entire gang, that is Torque. He's a ganger. He's equipped with mesh armor, last gun with demo charges. He's also packing a bolt pistol, and he too has the specialist skill as well. And that pretty much makes up Fresh Prince Bel-Air's deployment on this one. So with the deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and my buddy Fresh Prince Bel-Air starts off with priority because he is the attacker in this scenario. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Orlocks in this one, and Fresh Prince Bel-Air rolls a D3 to figure out how many fighters he gets to activate before I get to activate my very first fighter. Unfortunately for him, he only rolled a 1, so because of that, he decides to activate the Toe Cutter first. He does manage to pass his cool check with the Toe Cutter as well as with Doc Dealgood, so both those guys will be able to make 2 actions for this very first turn. So the first thing he ends up doing is that he activates the Toe Cutter, actually has him move up his normal movement allowance right directly to the Hedgehog on the top of the screen there. That way he can take cover behind Hedgehog and he opens fire with his bolt gun. At the same time, Doc Dealgood does take a basic action to aim, getting +1 to hit with his long-range shots for his heavy stubber, and for his second basic action, he opens up directly into the middle of my gang, which is located right on the other side of the table, right in the middle of the battlefield, and starts shooting at my characters in order to bring down some of my fighters. Unfortunately for me, though, he does manage to get a couple of out-of-action results. He managed to take out my new ganger, Johnny, managed to put him directly out of action. Luckily for me, though, he got the lessons learned injury, so because of that, he does go to recovery, but he managed to get 2 points of experience, which is pretty awesome as well. And I should just mention right off the bat that that was done by Doc Dilgood, the servitor, so because that earns himself an additional experience point. Unfortunate for me, though, because Zero was every one of the gang members within 3 inches of Johnny, my ganger, they all have to take a break test. Luckily for them, though, they all pass their cool test except for Zero. He fails his. He runs up, I think, something like 7 inches to the top. So right there, you can see the top there. He's behind those chemical tanks right there and taking cover. The second shot was fired by First Prince Bel-Air's leader, the Toe Cutter. Managed to hit and put a serious injury onto Sulaco, my ammo jack as well. So because of that, he goes crashing face down the ground and he starts bleeding out as well. And that pretty much makes it the opening action phase for my friend First Prince Bel-Air. So for his second fighter activation, he decides to charge in the Knight Rider, and the reason why is because I have Reptile right there on the top of the roof, right behind them. So he decides to attack him with his champion, Knight Rider. He goes charging directly into the Reptile, and actually managed to unload both of his attacks directly onto him. Unfortunately, though, my opponent just kind of flubbed his wound rolls. He did manage to hit me twice, but unfortunately managed to fail wounding me twice at all. So because of that, Reptile does get a counterattack, and I decided to hit him, and not only did I hit him, I think I managed to hit him twice with my stub gun. That's the one with the armed with dum-dum bullets, which is a strength 4 hit. Not only did I manage to put that guy out of action as well, managed to put a critical injury roll on that guy too. So because of that, he goes directly out of action, and he also goes into recovery. So that part was pretty nice as well. So with all of his activations over with, we jump over to my activation. And the very first activation I send in is Reptile. I charge him directly into the back of Kundalini because that gang is armed with a grenade launcher, and if I don't stop that guy from shooting his frag grenades directly into my gang, it's going to cause me all kinds of problems. So I do charge into him. I do get a bonus attack for charging, and I also get a bonus attack for having additional weapons for Reptile. Unfortunately for me, though, I just flubbed my wound rolls. I managed to hit him like twice, but failed to wound twice, which is really, really sad for me. And at the same time, he also tried to counterattack as well, but unfortunately for Kundalini, though, he failed his attack dice, so that part was kind of sad. And that pretty much makes up the action phase on this side. So for his next activation, my friend First Prince Bel-Air decides to activate No Face. He actually does a normal movement behind the ambulance, opens fire with his flamer directly into Sulaco, which is my ammo jack, and covers him an entire sheet of Promethean fire. Unfortunately for First Prince Bel-Air, though, the shot didn't actually cause any problems whatsoever. It didn't wound Sulaco, and also didn't cause any blaze actions either. So because of that, the action is pretty much kind of wasted on him for the most part. So for my next activation, I decided to do a group activation. I activate Riptor, my gang leader, and since he's got the cult icon as well as commanding presence ability, he also activates VR as well as Mad Teddy. He also managed to activate Scorpion as well. So Scorpion does a double movement all the way to the back of that stretch limo there on the top of the screen there to take cover. At the same time, I also do double moves with Mad Teddy as well as VR. They both move to the Hedgehog to the left-hand side as well. For Riptor, I only move him up his normal movement allowance of 5 inches, so that way he can take a fire with his grenade launcher on his bolt gun. That's a bolt gun grenade launcher combo, and I aim it directly at Johnny the Boy as well as Diabando, which on the far right-hand side of the battlefield. As you see this picture, I managed to hit both those guys with the template, and the massive explosion goes off directly on both of them, both of them engulfing both of those characters in a engulfing ring of fire and shrapnel. Luckily for me, I did manage to put a serious injury onto Johnny the Boy, so he goes crashing to the ground face down and starts bleeding out. Meanwhile, Diabando managed to survive, but he failed his panic check, he failed his cool checks because of that he runs over, I think, 8 inches to the left-hand side, hiding right behind that gantry catwalk there, so that way he doesn't get shot at because he just watches his buddy get blown up with a grenade launcher. Meanwhile, my friend First Prince Bel-Air decides to activate Kundalini, decides to once again attack into Reptile. Unfortunately for him, though, he failed to hit me both of his times with his close combat attacks. However, Reptile, no problem in putting a serious injury directly onto Kundalini, so he goes crashing face down on the ground, bleeding right at the feet of Reptile, which is a really bad spot for him to be in because during the next turn, I can just do a simple action, do a coup de grace, and I can finish him off that way, which I plan on doing in my next activation. However, disaster does strike when my friend decides to activate Mudguts. I'm sorry, not Mudguts. His name is Durango. Durango is the ganger who's armed with a shotgun. He actually activates him, does a double action charge directly into Sulaco, which is my ammo jack, who is seriously injured right now. And because of that, he decides to finish him off with the coup de grace real quick and automatically puts him out of action. If you notice, there is no injury roll for Sulaco, and the reason why is because no injury rolls are made for hired guns, and he goes directly out of action, and I lose my very first guy for the scenario so far. And since all my fighters are activated, the rest of the turn is dedicated directly to Fresh Prince Bel-Air. He then activates Torque, which is the ganger who's overwatching the northern side of the battlefield. He does take a basic action to aim with his last gun and open fire with another basic action directly into Scorpion. But unfortunately for him, though, he misses his shot, so nothing much happens there. Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates his Ganger Starbuck, who moves up his normal moon allowance and open fires his last gun directly into Zero, which is the closest enemy fighter towards him. His shot is accurate, it does cause a wound onto Zero, and plus he puts a serious injury directly onto my Ganger, so because of that he also falls face down to the ground, and he's also currently bleeding out as well. I will need to roll for him on the end phase to see exactly what happens to him. Meanwhile, my friend Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates Bubba Zanetti, his Ganger, with a telescopic sight on an autogun. He actually moves up his normal moon allowance and has an open fire with his autogun directly into my gang leader, Riptor, and when he fired his rapid fire dice, he managed to roll 3 hits on my gang leader. Luckily for me though, only one of them wounded, so because of that, my gang leader is only pinned, and he's also down 1 wound as well, which is not such a big deal for me because my gang leader actually has 2 more wounds to go because of his last battle report when he fought against the zombies in the meat scenario. He managed to level up his wounds, so that part is pretty awesome as well. So with that, we go directly to the end phase and we start rolling for injuries. So first off, we start off with Zero. Unfortunately for me though, I rolled a grievous injury result for him, so because of that he does go out of action. At the same time, he also goes in recovery as well. So now 2 members of my gang are now no longer participating in this scenario. Good news for me though is that also Johnny the Boy also goes out of action. He gets an out cold result, so because of that he's no longer participating in the battle report. So that's 1 less iron sight I have to worry about. And at the same time, the Juvie Diabando manages to get his cool back, so because of that, he manages to free himself from breaking his nerve, and he also nets himself an experience point as well. And lastly, when it comes to Kundalini, unfortunately for him though, he rolled another serious injury result, so because of that, that gang fighter is still laying on the ground, bleeding out, which makes him vulnerable to the coup de grace from Reptile, which is always an awesome thing. So with the end phase over with, we go directly to the end of the turn. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, my gang is slowly maneuvering their way to the north, trying to escape the Orlock iron sights from the south as well as from the west. I know I could go east to west, go to the left-hand side of the battlefield and try to escape that way. The only problem though is that if I do that, I have to worry about Doc Dealgood as well as the Toe Cutter cutting my guys down as they try to escape. So I'm just going to plan on just continuing my escape up to the top of the screen and hopefully get away that way. Scorpion is pretty close to the line, so that way he can make a break for it. At the same time, I can also make a break for it with Reptile heading down south, so things are looking still pretty good for my gang. So with the end of turn number 1, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 and we roll off for priority to see who goes first. Alright, so that takes directly to the bottom of the top of turn number 2 for the Cawdor. I managed to get the priority on this one. So the first thing I do, of course, I activate Riptor, and since he uses the Commanding Presence ability, I also activate VR as well as Mad Teddy. I spend a simple action to get Riptor back on his feet again and do another simple action again to move forward. I move him up his normal moon allowance to get to the other side of that stretch limo there in the middle of the screen, so that way he's near Scorpion. At the same time, because he was in 3 inches of VR as well as Mad Teddy, both of those guys do double movements all the way to the rubble wall there on the top of the screen, and they're trying to make their escape and try to get off the table before they end up getting shot off the table as well. And that pretty much makes it my very first activation for this one. Up next, Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates Torque, and instead of firing with his last gun, he decides to take basic action to aim with his bolt pistol, and then takes another basic action to open fire with his bolt pistol directly into my gang leader. Unfortunately, I forgot that guy Torque was up there on the top of the ruins. I just wasn't thinking about it, so he has a perfect beeline shot direct to my gang leader. And not only does he manage to hit me, but he also managed to wound me as well, giving me my character a flesh wound. So because I was laying up face up, just kind of laying there at the same time because he's currently pinned. So that part was absolutely horrific. Meanwhile, then activates Scorpion, who takes a basic action aim with his last gun and another basic action open fire directly into Torque because Torque is behind partial cover. So I try to do the aim action to negate the -1 to hit against I would have if I shot at him. And lucky for me, I did manage to hit him. Unfortunately, I was not good enough in order to wound him, so because of that, Torque is currently pinned. He does pass his initiative test, so he does stay directly onto the floor that he's on. He's not going to roll off the edge and fall off, so that part's kind of nice for him. But at the same time, though, I wish Med managed to take that guy out just because he wounded my leader, and that part was kind of sad. Meanwhile, on the other side of the table, Fresh Prince Bel-Air then activates the Toe Cutter, who moves up a basic action, move forward, and then opens fire with his bolt gun directly into Mad Teddy and VR. Luckily for me, though, his shots land wide, so because of that, both of my gangers are unscathed from that round of shooting. And for my next activation, I decided to activate Reptile, who puts a grievous injury directly onto Kundalini, so puts that guy out of action, which is all kinds of good. And I make a simple action for him to move to the southern part of the table with his normal moon allowance, and since he's to the edge of the table edge, he automatically escapes. So because of that, that nets 1 victory point for me, at the same time also 1 point of experience for my fighter Reptile. So with all my fighters activated, the rest of the turn is dedicated to the Orlocks. The first thing that Fresh Prince Bel-Air does, he activates, Doc Dealgood. He decides to take a basic action aim and another action to open fire with his heavy stubber directly into Mad Teddy and VR. Luckily for me, though, his shots did all miss, so because of that, I didn't worry about that. Fresh Prince Belair then begins his pursuit to start hunting my characters down by moving out both No Face as well as Durango. Both those guys make double movements across the battlefield behind the chemical tanks, heading directly behind my jury. On the right hand side, Diabanda does exactly the same thing, moving up to the right hand flank to try to catch the rest of my gang as quickly as he possibly can. And Starbug does exactly the same thing, moving up at normal moon allowance and opening fire with his autogun directly across the battlefield directly towards Riptor. Unfortunately for him, though, his shots do miss and unfortunately does fail his ammo check, so because of that, he will need to spend a simple action next round trying to reload his gun. And once again, my friend Fresh Prince Belair then activates the Knight Rider, Bubba Zeddy, who then takes a basic action to aim with his auto gun, so he has a +1 to hit, and he spends a basic action to fire, and he manages to roll 3 more shots, going off with the rapid fire dice for his auto gun. And to make matters worse, he also puts another flesh wound directly onto Riptor, so Riptor is now face down, bleeding out 2 flesh wounds, which is all kinds of bad for him because he was only toughness 3, so I do manage to get another flesh wound. He automatically goes out of action. My only hope here is that I keep on rolling serious injury rolls with this guy, so that way he doesn't go out of action, so that way I don't have to worry about taking any injury rolls for that guy as well, so that part was kind of rough. So with the action phase over with, we go directly to the end phase. And the very first thing I do have, of course, is take a bottle test. And unfortunately for me, I do fail my bottle test. So because I do lose a point of reputation for bottling out, at the same time, all my fighters will need to take cool tests to see if they stand their ground or whether they flee the battlefield. So that part is kind of tragic as well. And luckily for me, Riptor also managed to roll a serious injury result. So because he is still laying on the ground and he is still bleeding out. So, you know, tender mercies, I guess, is all that matters. And that pretty much ends turn number 2 for this one. Alright, so that takes us directly to the end of turn number 2, and here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, the Orlocks are slowly pursuing me across the battlefield as I try to make my way up to the top of the table. Mad Teddy as well as VR very close to make it to the edge, same thing with Scorpion. Unfortunately for me, though, the only other fighter I have is Riptor, and he is currently bleeding out, and so the best case scenario for him is that he just rolls another serious injury result. Otherwise, that poor guy is going to go out of action. So with the turn number 2 over with, we go directly to the top at turn number 3, and Fresh Prince Belair and I roll off for priority to see who goes first. Alright, so we're directly to turn number 3, and the Orlocks manage to get the priority on this one. So the very first thing that my friend Fresh Prince Belair does is he activates the Doc Deal Good. He spends a basic action to aim his Heavy Stubborn, takes another basic action to open fire with it directly into Scorpion. He managed to get 3 shots off on Scorpion. Unfortunately for me, 2 of them did manage to wound, putting serious injury directly onto Scorpion at the same time causing a flesh wound as well. So because of that now, he's not going anywhere as he's laying on the ground bleeding out, which is all kinds of miserable. But I do activate VR next, who does a double movement across the battlefield to the end zone, and although you can see there in that picture, he makes it all the way to 1 inch within the table edge, and he is home free as well. He managed to escape. I get to score a victory point for myself, at the same time managed to score a point of experience for VR as well. Fresh Prince Belair then activates the Toe Cutter, who spends a basic action to move forward, and another basic action to open fire directly with his bolt gun. He opens fire directly into Mad Teddy. And he managed to hit Mad Teddy twice, putting a out of action result on him as well, but giving him an out cold result. So because of that, Mad Teddy goes automatically off the battlefield, and unfortunately for me, though, I lose another member of my gang. And once again, Fresh Prince Belair activates Bubba Zanetti. This guy who cannot miss at long range shooting with his autogun because of his telescopic sight, as well as rolling 3 hits on his rapid fire dice as always. So he rolls another 3 hits directly onto Riptor, my gang leader, and he managed to hit all 3 times and wound all 3 times. And just like that, Riptor goes directly out of action, suffering a grievous injury result as a result of that as well. Also netting 2 experience points for the night for Bubba Zanetti, which is all kinds of good for him. So that part was pretty sad. And then Fresh Prince Belair then activates No Face, who takes a basic simple action to move forward and takes a basic action to open fire with his flamer and covering poor Scorpion in a sheet of warp flame. And not only does he manage to wound him, but he also managed to put him out of action as well. And luckily for me, though, I did get the Out Lessons Learned result off on Scorpion, so he does go to recovery, but he also earns 2 additional points of experience, which is pretty cool on that part as well. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much eliminates my entire gang from this scenario. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the end of the game with the Orlocks managed to take the win on this one. And as you can see, my friend Fresh Prince Belair had no problem either eliminating all the members of my gang one by one as he pursued me in this horrible, horrible ambush scenario that I just fought. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go directly to the after action report to the post game because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, now it's time for the post game, and first off we start with a jury, my gang, who lost this battle report. For my injuries, I actually suffered 7 injuries in this one. Riptor suffered a grievous injury, same thing with 0. Mad Teddy suffered an out cold result, while Scorpion and Johnny both go into recovery, but they managed to learn the lessons learned injuries as well. Scorpion earning +2 his experience point, as well as Johnny. And unfortunately for me, Johnny also managed to get captured by the Iron Sights, and that one was absolutely horrific, just because now I have to do a rescue mission or pay a ransom, whatever which one comes first. Solak, on the other hand, though, he made a full recovery, no problem going on there, so that pretty much makes up all my injuries on this one. As for my advancements, Riptor did level up to level 5, earning +1 to his ballistic skill, and Reptile, my Juvie, also leveled up to level 3, earning +1 to his weapon skill, so now he's a little bit deadlier in close combat as well. For my territories, for my very first settlement, I earned 60 credits, as well as 1 point reputation from that. I also managed to earn 10 credits for my old ruins, as well as 25 credits for my slag furnace as well. Settlement number 2, though, my 5th territory, I lost that to the Iron Sights, so because of that, the Iron Sights were able to take all that as well from me. In the end, though, during the trading post phase, I managed to have 100 credits. When I combined the credits from my stash as well as the ones I got from my territories, I ended up with a total of 100 credits. So in the end, my opponent, Fresh Prince Belair, decided that he would hold Johnny for ransom, and if I gave him the 100 credits that I got from my territories, I could buy back Johnny from the Iron Sights, and I decided exactly to do that as well. So because of that, Johnny does come back to my gang, which is pretty cool, but at the same time, though, I lose all of my money that I generated for this scenario as well. But, you know, them's the breaks. For my reputation, I do earn 1 point reputation for fighting against the Iron Sights for the very first time, and I also gained 1 point reputation for my settlement. However, I did bottle out, so because I do lose 1 point reputation, that brings my grand total to 32 points in total. In the end, my new record now is at 5 wins as well as 3 losses, and my new gang rating is at 2,390 points. So up next is the Iron Sights, the victorious gang in this scenario. So this is what happened to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air's gang. He actually lost 3 guys in this scenario. The Knight Rider, who suffered a critical injury. Lucky for him, though, he made a full recovery, so he is perfectly fine. Kundalini suffered a grievous injury, so he will go into recovery and miss out his next battle report. Meanwhile, John the Boy got an out cold result, so he is perfectly fine. He had 3 members of his gangs advance in this scenario. Bubba Zanetti, he leveled up to level 3, earning +1 to his ballistic skill. Starbuck leveled up to level 3, earning +1 to his movement, so now he's a movement 6 Orlock fighter, which is actually kind of interesting. And then No Face also leveled up to level 2, earning +1 to his toughness. So now he's toughness 4, which makes it even harder for us to try to wound against him. From his territories, from his first settlement, he recruited a brand new ganger for free, and that guy's name was Tycho is his name. He also earned 1 point reputation as well as 60 credits. And from settlement number 2, which is the territory he captured from me, he also rolled double 6s for that one as well, recruiting another ganger for free. This guy's name is Sterno was his name. Also earned 1 point reputation, and once again he rolled another 6 for his territories, getting him 60 credits as well. And at the same time, his reputation as Tunnels, of course, give him +1 reputation as well. In the trading post, he earns 150 credits from the territories that he had from his gang, as well as the previous money that he saved up from his stash. He also earns 100 credits from the ransom that he got from Johnny, from my ganger Johnny. I paid him 100 credits in order to get that guy back, giving him a grand total of 250 credits. With those 250 credits, he bought a flamer as well as a stub gun for Sterno, his newly recruited ganger that he got from his settlement, and he also purchased a plasma gun and stub gun for Tycho, the second ganger that he got from his settlement as well. So now these guys are kitted out for kill as well. From his first reputation, or 1 point reputation for fighting against the jury for the very first time, as well as 3 points reputation from his territories. He also managed to get another additional point reputation for putting out more Cawdor fighters out of action than those who escaped, and that brings his grand total now to 35 points of reputation. His new record now is at 4 wins and 7 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 2,445 points. So this was a huge upset for our campaign, because one of the lowest ranking gangs in our campaign managed to take out my leader, my gang, which is actually a pretty good gang. But you know, it's all fun and games because that's what happens in the Underhive of Necromunda. So that's going to do it for this week, guys. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. You guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's going to do it for this week, guys. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out and stay classy.